They said it was shut down forever, that the Rock, America's most feared and isolated prison, would never open its doors again. But now, after more than 60 years of silence, Alcatraz is coming back. And the man reopening it? President Donald J. Trump. He says it's for the worst of the worst. He says Alcatraz will be the ultimate punishment for violent criminals, terrorists, gang leaders, and enemies of the state. But here's the question no one is asking. Why now? Why bring back the most haunted prison in America, one that's been closed since 1963? What if it's not just about criminals? What if Alcatraz is being reopened for something far more sinister? Because there's something strange about that island. Always has been. Before it was a prison, native tribes called it a cursed place. A land where evil spirits were said to live, screaming from the rocks at night. Soldiers stationed there in the 1800s claimed to hear chains rattling, whispers in the dark, and faces staring at them from inside the walls. Even the toughest inmates said the cells felt alive, and not in a good way. This isn't just a jail. It's a legend soaked in mystery, madness, and death. Over the years, people have reported ghost sightings, cold spots, and unexplained screams echoing from empty hallways. Some say the spirits of the men who died there, murderers, traitors, tortured souls, never left. And now the government wants to send more people inside? Or maybe that's the point. Some conspiracy theorists believe this is just the cover story, that Alcatraz isn't being reopened for justice, but for experiments, dark ones. There are whispers that the island has been used in the past for classified operations, possibly CIA mind control experiments, secret detentions, or even occult rituals tied to the land's cursed history. Sound crazy? Maybe. But so did the idea that 3 men escaped Alcatraz in 1962, and they were never found. To this day, no one knows if they drowned or vanished. And maybe that's why the government wants the island back, not because it's secure, but because it's sealed, because whatever's locked inside it can't get out, or at least it couldn't. So if you think this is just another prison story, you're wrong. This is about something else, something ancient, something powerful, because when Alcatraz reopens, it won't just be inmates walking through those gates. Something else is going in with them. And if what's buried beneath that rock wakes up, it won't stay there for long. On May 4th, 2025, the news hit like a thunderclap. President Donald Trump announced he was reopening Alcatraz, not as a museum, not as a historic site, but as a fully operational supermax prison, a place to hold, in his words, the worst of the worst. Terrorists, cartel bosses, enemies of the United States, and possibly people the government doesn't want the public to hear from again. Let that sink in for a second. The most notorious prison in American history is being brought back to life in the middle of San Francisco Bay, decades after it was shut down, and almost no one is questioning it. Not the mainstream media, not the politicians, not the experts, but maybe they should be, because this isn't just a prison. This is Alcatraz, a place with a reputation so dark, even some guards refuse to be stationed there overnight. A place once believed to be spiritually cursed by the people who lived on this land long before the United States was even a country. And now, it's being turned into a fortress for the forgotten. But what's really going on here? Trump says he wants to send criminals so dangerous they can't be trusted anywhere else. But critics are already pointing out the obvious. The federal government already has high-tech supermax prisons, like ADX Florence, where inmates are kept in total isolation 23 hours a day. So why reopen Alcatraz, a crumbling island that costs a fortune to maintain? Why now? Some believe it's a political stunt, that Trump is flexing power, showing he's tough on crime during an election year. But others aren't buying it. They think Alcatraz isn't being reopened to contain the worst criminals. It's being reopened to hide them. Think about it, it's completely isolated, cut off by water, tightly controlled, hard to reach, even harder to leave. If someone were to disappear in there, would anyone ever know? According to leaked documents from a whistleblower inside the Department of Homeland Security, there are rumors that Alcatraz will have a secret wing, one not listed on any public blueprint. No names, no cameras, no oversight, just locked doors and silence. Now, is that true? No one can say for sure. But what makes it even more disturbing is the type of prisoners people think may end up there. Some speculate it won't just be cartel lords or domestic terrorists. It might also include political enemies, whistleblowers, or anyone the government considers a security risk. Sound crazy? Maybe. But this wouldn't be the first time a US government facility was used to bury people instead of rehabilitate them. Just ask anyone who studied Guantanamo Bay, or MK Ultra, or COINTELPRO. And here's another twist. Sources claim the prison may also be used for classified operations, things like psychological evaluations, secret medical treatments, or testing new security technology. One leaked report refers to non-standard interrogation rooms. Another mentions long-duration sensory isolation, a method linked to mind control experiments in the 1960s. And where better to do that than Alcatraz? No neighbors, no press, no cell phone reception, just waves and rock. Some even think the prison is a front, a cover for something deeper beneath the surface. Literally. They say the island hides a network of underground chambers from its days as a military fort, rooms that were sealed off, tunnels never mapped, and vaults filled with who knows what. One former park ranger claims he found a sealed steel hatch under one of the towers, welded shut, and never discussed again. When he asked about it, his supervisor told him, "You didn't see anything." Creepy. Definitely. Coincidence? Maybe not. Because with the return of Alcatraz, we're not just reopening a prison. We may be awakening something much older and much harder to control. There's something about that island that people have always feared. Something that goes beyond bricks and bars. It's in the air, in the water, in the walls, and if the wrong people go in, we might never hear from them again. Alcatraz has always been more than just a prison. It was designed to be inescapable, yes. But some say it was also designed to be invisible, a place to put people the government didn't want anyone asking questions about. And now that it's being reopened, some fear that whatever was happening before is about to start again. Let's talk about the experiments. Now, officially, there's no record of mind control testing or illegal experiments on Alcatraz. But official records don't always tell the whole story. Because between the 1950s and 1970s, the CIA ran a secret program called MK Ultra. It was designed to explore mind control, brainwashing, and chemical manipulation, all in the name of national security. And where did they get their test subjects? Prisons, mental hospitals, people no one would miss. Is it really that hard to believe that Alcatraz, isolated, silent, and full of dangerous inmates, was on that list? Some researchers say yes, but others claim the island's unofficial history tells a much darker story. One former guard, who worked there during the final years before the 1963 closure, gave a strange interview before his death. He claimed that late at night select prisoners were pulled from their cells and taken to a locked medical wing that wasn't on the blueprints. He said the men came back hours later looking changed, silent, sluggish, different. Some would wake up screaming, others just stared at the walls for days. When he asked what was happening, he was told, "They're part of a federal program. Stay out of it." And then there are the rumors of the echo chamber. It was said to be a soundproof room deep in the belly of the prison, where the government tested sensory deprivation, audio torture, and chemical exposure. Not to extract information, but to break the mind. One inmate supposedly scratched the walls until his fingers bled, carving the words, "I hear them in the silence." It was painted over. The man was never seen again. Too creepy to be true? Maybe. But then again, why do parts of the original Alcatraz blueprints go missing? Why are certain areas of the island off limits, even to park rangers? A recent investigative report revealed that seismic sensors have been installed beneath the prison since 2022. Not for earthquakes, but to monitor underground movement. Movement of what? And why now? Some believe the government isn't just reopening Alcatraz to lock people up. They're trying to restart something that was shut down a long time ago. Something powerful, something dangerous. There are even whispers that what's happening on Alcatraz could be linked to classified psychological warfare programs, the kind that were tested in the Cold War but never truly stopped. They just went underground. Literally. And here's where it gets even darker. A former Navy contractor, who asked to remain anonymous, claimed he was sent to survey Alcatraz in 2024 for infrastructure upgrades. But what he found wasn't old plumbing or electrical lines. He said there was a hidden elevator shaft in one of the towers that went below the waterline. It was welded shut, the metal scorched, like someone didn't just seal it, they tried to destroy it. He asked his supervisor what it was. The answer? That level's been off limits since 1959. You weren't supposed to see that. We can't prove any of this, of course. There's no open file, no official acknowledgement. But the timing, the secrecy, the unanswered questions, it's all too familiar. Because when governments experiment on people, they always deny it, until someone leaks the truth. And by then, it's too late. So here's the question you have to ask. If the government was using Alcatraz for something other than prison, if there really were hidden wings, mind games, and off-the-books programs, what happens now that the doors are opening again? Is it just a prison for criminals? Or is it a laboratory for something worse? Something that changes the mind, something that breaks the soul, something that was never meant to wake up again. And now, it has. Long before Alcatraz became a prison, it was a place people refused to go. Native tribes, especially the Ohlone, believed the rocky island was cursed. They called it a place of dark spirits, a place the dead could not escape from. Some even used it as a form of punishment, banishing those who broke tribal law to the island overnight, where they were said to hear whispers in the fog and see things in the water that didn't have faces. So it's no surprise that when Alcatraz became a prison in the 1930s, that darkness didn't go away. It got worse. Ask any former guard, ranger, or inmate, and you'll hear stories that sound like something out of a horror movie. But they're real, and they've been happening for decades. Let's start with cell 14D. This was one of the prison's solitary confinement cells, a cold, dark room where inmates were locked up for days, sometimes weeks, with no light, no sound, and barely any food. One prisoner in the 1940s was thrown into 14D for fighting. By the next morning, he was dead, found curled in the corner, his eyes wide open, mouth frozen mid-scream. The cause of death? Officially, heart failure. Unofficially, the guards reported hearing him screaming through the night, begging to be let out, saying, "It's in here with me." Some claimed he wasn't alone in that cell. And even today, visitors say the room feels ice cold. People who go inside report feeling watched. Some say they can't breathe, others claim they hear breathing just behind them when no one's there. And that's not the only haunted spot. The laundry room, tucked deep inside the prison, has been the site of countless paranormal reports. Guards used to say they'd hear chains dragging across the floor, even when it was completely empty. Lights flickered. Cold spots appeared in corners where no wind could reach. And more than one tourist has fainted while walking through it during tours. Then there's Block C, where former inmates have said they saw a tall figure in black moving between the cells late at night, a shadow that didn't belong to anyone living. But the creepiest stories? They come from the guard tower, the highest point on the island. A park ranger in the 1980s reported climbing the tower alone during a routine check. He says he heard footsteps above him, even though he was the only one there. When he reached the top, the hatch to the roof was open and swinging back and forth like someone had just gone through it. He never went back up again. And these aren't isolated stories. In fact, paranormal investigators from all over the world have called Alcatraz one of the most haunted places on Earth. Teams from shows like Ghost Hunters and Destination Fear have visited the island, capturing EVPs, shadow figures, and temperature drops that make no scientific sense. But what if the hauntings aren't just the result of a violent past? What if there's something deeper? Some believe the land itself is cursed, a kind of spiritual trap where souls can't move on. They say the suffering, isolation, and death that happened here didn't just stain the walls. It activated something ancient that had been waiting beneath the surface. And here's the part that really sends chills down your spine. Since the announcement to reopen Alcatraz, paranormal activity has increased. Park rangers have reported new cold spots, security systems have triggered after hours, and one maintenance worker reportedly quit after hearing whispering voices calling his name in an empty hallway. Could reopening the prison be stirring something up? Some believe the curse was contained when the prison shut down in 1963. That sealing the doors also sealed the energy inside. But now that construction crews are returning, drilling, unlocking doors, tearing down barriers, that curse, it's waking up and it doesn't care who let it out. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there's no denying something's off about Alcatraz. Too many deaths, too many secrets, too many people who leave the island with stories they can't explain. So what's really going to happen when the lights come back on? When prisoners return? When the cell doors slam shut again? Are we just reopening a prison? Or are we reopening a doorway? One that should have stayed closed? Because once the curse is awake, it doesn't go back to sleep. Ask yourself this: why bring Alcatraz back now? Out of all the prisons in America, why this one? Why the island that everyone thought was locked away for good? President Trump says it's for the worst criminals, the ones who are too dangerous for the rest of the world. But if that's true, why not send them to ADX Florence or Guantanamo Bay? Why Alcatraz? Some say it's about control. Some say it's about symbolism, bringing back a place that represents total power and absolute punishment. But others believe something much darker is going on. There's a theory floating around. And no, it's not just coming from fringe conspiracy websites. It's being whispered by ex-military, former intelligence officers, even retired prison staff. The theory that Alcatraz is being reopened not to keep people in, but to keep something else contained. Think about it. What if the prison isn't just reopening for criminals, but for creatures, entities, or forces the government doesn't want the public to know about? Crazy? Maybe. But consider this. Over the past decade, more and more government files have been declassified about UFO sightings, unexplained aerial phenomena, and classified military encounters with unknowns. People are finally waking up to the fact that we're not being told everything. Now imagine this. What if there are not just visitors from beyond, but things that got left behind? Entities that don't belong here. Entities that the government doesn't understand and can't kill. So instead of destroying them, they contain them. And what better place to do that than an island no one dares visit? Some believe that deep below Alcatraz, beneath the cells, the tunnels, the sealed doors, there is a containment chamber. Not built by us, built by whoever was here before. They say the prison was placed on top of something ancient, something that was already there, something that needed to be buried permanently. And now, with all this new construction, the seals are being disturbed. Ask yourself, if it was just a prison, why did security cameras go dark last week during a late-night delivery? Why did a helicopter circle the island for over 2 hours with its lights off? Why is the public only allowed on limited areas of the island, even during renovations? And here's what's even more disturbing. Insiders say the reopening will include a section of the island that's never been accessed publicly before, a sublevel that doesn't appear on any blueprints. They're calling it Facility X. What's in Facility X? No one's saying. Not the military, not the contractors, not the president, but someone wants that island back, someone with power and secrets. And it's not just about prisoners anymore. This is about energy. This is about history. This is about control. Because the truth is, places like Alcatraz aren't just built, they're chosen. You don't stick the most violent men in America on a rock in the middle of freezing, shark-infested water just because it's hard to escape. You do it because something about the island is different. You do it because it's not just a prison, it's a lock. And what happens if the key gets turned? What happens if whatever's been buried for generations wakes up? There's a reason the native people stayed away. There's a reason every ghost hunter leaves shaken. There's a reason some guards never came back. Alcatraz was never just about punishment. It was about protection. And now that the doors are opening again, who's going to protect us? Because if they're not putting monsters in, maybe they're getting ready to let something out. So what do you believe? Is this just politics, crime, and punishment? Or are we watching the government dig up something it can't explain and definitely can't control? Leave a comment below with your theory. Because the next time the fog rolls across the bay and the lights go out on Alcatraz, you might want to look twice. Something could be staring back.